Howdy folks, here back again to do another collection video. This time I thought I'd take a look at movies that I own that I saw in the theater. Yeah, I'm getting desperate here. Now, not every movie that I saw in the theater I own. There's quite a few of them. Maybe just off the count of one hand, but these are movies that I own that I saw in the theater. They're in a little bit of alphabetical order, a little bit for the most part, because I'm going to do it backwards, just because of shelving reasons. We'll start with this pile right here. There's several piles. I'll try to go as quickly as I can. But the first one up here, I saw when I was in college. I saw this at the movie theater down there, and it's Triple X, State of the Union. This was the sequel that starred Ice Cube. Did not star Vin Diesel. It was the one with Ice Cube. It was okay of a movie. The only X-Men movie I saw, X-Men Origins Wolverine. Yeah. Woodlawn. This is a faith-based film from Pure Flix Entertainment. Wonder Woman, the first Wonder Woman. Just recently saw the Wonder Woman 1984. I liked it, did have some issues with it, but yeah. Where the Wild Things Are, the Spike Jonze flick. This one's kind of been forgotten about, you know. When it came out, it was a little bit of a big deal, but either kids didn't like it or whatever. It was really a kids movie made for adults. War of the Worlds, the Tom Cruise version, directed by Steven Spielberg. Yeah. Walk the Line with Joaquin Phoenix and Reese Witherspoon. In my honest opinion, Joaquin Phoenix should have been the one getting the Oscar for this film. Yeah. This one was a bit of a disappointment for me at the time, but it's M. Night Shyamalan's The Village. Yeah. Unplanned, the true story of Abby Johnson and Planned Parenthood, the film that Planned Parenthood doesn't want you to see. Unbroken, the film directed by Angelina Jolie, based on a true story. Guy by the name of Louis Zamperini. And I'm just going to get these all out of the way. It's all the Transformers movies, directed by Michael Bay. There's Transformers, Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, Transformers Dark of the Moon, Transformers Age of Extinction, and Transformers The Last Knight. Of the Toy Story movies, I only managed to see Toy Story 4, Toy Story 3, and Toy Story 1 in the theater. Did not get to see 2. But yeah, got to see most of the Toy Story movies in the theater. Titanic. Yeah, I remember specifically seeing Titanic. It was the first movie that I know that I saw in digital surround sound. DTS surround sound, and it was it was really a treat for me when this came out on Blu-ray with a DTS HD soundtrack, so that I could hear somewhat of the way I heard it back in 1997. Timeline. I saw this movie in college. Not that great of a movie, but yeah. Richard Donner flick starring the late Paul Walker. And of the Thor movies, I only saw the first one and Thor: The Dark World. Didn't get to see the third one. Terminator Salvation. That's the only one of the Terminators I saw in the theater. And Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows. And of course, this is Easter weekend. Movie that is playing currently on television. The Ten Commandments. Of course, I also just got this Ultra 4K HD version. I ought to do another video where I talk about the many different versions I have of the Ten Commandments. It's a very special film to me, and so, yeah. Yeah, the Ten Commandments. I saw this a few years ago when they played the film for its 60th anniversary. And it was a 2-night thing, and they just did another one here, another screening last weekend, I believe, where you could see the Ten Commandments up on the big screen for 1 or 2 nights. It was a part of the Fathom events. Yeah, and this comes to conclusion for me. Movies like this, the Ten Commandments, and Ben-Hur as well, these movies were not meant to be seen on a television screen. These movies were meant for movie theaters. So that's where I'm kind of going to go into a little bit of a rant here. This whole streaming thing, yes, we have it, but streaming movies simultaneously while sending them to the theater, that is a big mistake. You're shooting yourself in the foot, studios, when you do that. You don't realize what you're doing. But it is here. It's not going away. Now, these three here are out of order. I managed to buy these from the Disney Movie Club, but I saw all three of them in the theater when they originally played. We've got Honey, I Shrunk the Kids from 1989. Yes, I was there in 1989 in a movie theater in Marion, Indiana, in the mall, watching Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. And Georgia the Jungle. Interesting story about this movie. This was a memorable experience for me because my dad hated this movie. And when we went to see it, he fell asleep twice. Yes. And another film I saw it opening weekend, actually opening day, to be specifically. It was not the greatest film that Disney has ever put out. It's kind of a forgotten movie, actually. It was right at that time when Tim Allen was really huge for Disney, and so he was making movies right and left for Disney while he was doing Home Improvement. This was the third film that he did. First one was the Santa Claus. The second one was Toy Story. And then there was this film called Jungle to Jungle, which is based on a French novel and film called, well, if you translate it from French into English, it stands for Little Indian Big City. But yeah, supposedly the story, not supposedly, but the story is Tim Allen plays this Wall Street booker. You know, he works at Wall Street, and he works on Wall Street, and he's getting ready to be married to this woman, but he has to be finalizing a divorce with his ex-wife, played by Jo Beth Williams, and so he flies to the Amazon to track her down and finalize the divorce. And then while he's there, he finds out that he has a son that he never knew about. And so the son, in terms of the tribe, he's raised by these Amazon natives, and in this tribe, at the age of 13, you become a man. And so the Indian chief gives him a specific mission that he is to bring back fire from the Statue of Liberty. Well, I'm not going to tell you what happened, but he ends up bringing the kid back to New York City with him, and they're having to get to know one another. And so, and there's also some hilarity that ensues. Now, hopefully I can grab this pile because this one's next. Yeah. At least I think it's next. Let me check here real quick. Yeah. Well, we'll just go with it. Super 8. J.J. Abrams film produced by Steven Spielberg. This one's also coming to 4K eventually. They announced Tom Hanks in Sully, directed by Clint Eastwood. Very good film, even though not Clint Eastwood, but Captain Sullenberger, who this is based on, has spoken up against it. It's said it's not exactly true of what actually happened, but it's a movie based on your life. I mean, how true can you make it? But yeah, yeah, Sully, saw that one. Film by David Lynch, starring Richard Farnsworth. Came out in 1999, I believe. Yeah. And it's The Straight Story, released by Walt Disney Pictures. Saw this one in the theater. It only played for like 1 week at the theater we went to see it. It was at the Muncie Mall Theater. Matter of fact, I think it was the last movie I ever saw in that mall cinema. So, and what made it even more memorable was it was the last show of the evening. my dad decided to park his truck in front of the Sears store. And of course, when you go into a mall movie theater, you have to go into that specific entrance. And if it's a late show, you park in that mall, that entrance to the mall. Okay, if it goes right to the theater, that way you don't get trapped, because you cannot leave going through the mall if it's the last show, because everything is locked. They have it gated and shut. Well, needless to say, we had to leave out that exit and walk completely around the mall, and it was freezing cold. I'm talking like 10 to 15 degrees. Yes. Walking around the mall, and it was quite a walk. But yeah, I wish this would get a different release. Disney did this was one of the first movies released to Disney DVD, but there's no special features on it. I wish Criterion would pick this up, because they've been doing a lot of stuff with David Lynch. But it's Disney, they're not going to let that stuff go. Of the Star Wars films, was not able to see all of them, unfortunately. The ones I did see, Rogue One. Yeah. And The Last Jedi. Didn't get to see The Rise of Skywalker. The Force Awakens. Episode 3. Episode 2. And Episode 1. And of Star Trek, the only one I got to see there was Star Trek Into Darkness, which was the second film that J.J. Abrams did in the Star Trek universe. And that one gets picked on quite a bit. Space Cowboys came out in 2000. Got to see that one in the theater with was it Clint Eastwood, Tommy Lee Jones, Donald Sutherland, and James Garner. Saw this one when I was in college. It's Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow. M. Night Shyamalan, Signs. This was the last good one he did, in my opinion. Secondhand Lions. Not that great of a movie. It was kind of a sleeper movie. Came out in like when it was released, it came out I think like in the month of September. And so it was kind of this end of the summer movie. Robert Duvall, Michael Caine, Haley Joel Osment. The only Santa Claus movie I got to see in the theater was the Santa Claus 2. Did not get to see the first one. And unfortunately, this was the one I lost faith in this whole series. Yeah. Saw this one at a drive-in in Ohio. It's my aunt took me to see this one. Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, back in the day. Yeah, that was a big hit movie, but pretty bad. Real Steel. Saw that one in the theater. Of course, they were supposed to do a sequel to this. I don't know what happened, but good possibility it got scrapped because it didn't do as well as what they really wanted it to, and yeah, it's just we liked it at the time, but it just didn't do very well is what Disney was hoping for. And they had plans to do Real Steel 2, but I think the kid's too old and they just took too much of time, to make the movie. So we'll move on to the next pile here. We have here Prince of Egypt, which was animated film from DreamWorks telling the story of the Ten Commandments. The Wolfgang Peterson remake of the Poseidon Adventure, just flat out called Poseidon. Yes, I saw that one in the theater. I enjoyed it, but I had not seen the original Poseidon Adventure at that time, so I have since seen it and think the original film is superior. The Planet of the Apes. We got War for the Planet of the Apes and Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. And also the Tim Burton Planet of the Apes, which I saw back in 2001. So when I first got my driver's license, I could go out and finally go to the movies about whenever I wanted. The Pirates of the Caribbean films, I only got 2 that I saw in the theater, and it's the first one, The Curse of the Black Pearl, and Dead Man's Chest. This one, Pinocchio, Walt Disney's Pinocchio. Saw that one during a 1993 re-release. There was a whole big thing where in 1993 when Walt Disney decided to re-release Pinocchio, I believe for its 50th anniversary. Over 50th anniversary. But they decided to give it a stereo sound mix and restore the film and put it into theaters for a limited time in 1993. Thus, I got to see it. Now, the live-action version of Peter Pan, because this comes with 2 movies, Nanny McPhee. I did not see Nanny McPhee, but I did see the live-action version of Peter Pan. Not great. The visuals were pretty good, but it was too much. I think they were trying to take advantage of too much of what Steven Spielberg had done with Hook, and so there's a lot of stuff that, because of Hook, they amended to this. Saw this one at a drive-in, The Pebble and the Penguin, with Martin Short and Jim Belushi as the voices. Got Michael Bay, Jerry Bruckheimer production of Pearl Harbor. Yeah, I saw this one in the theater. There was eventually another version of this released, like a year later, I think. Part of another commemorative edition, and it was an R-rated cut. This one was PG-13, but they eventually released an R-rated cut to this. I I have not seen that version, but this was really criticized at the time for being overbloated with special effects, not being really truthful to, yeah, it's, you know how Hollywood and Michael Bay go, they don't like to get along. The Passion of the Christ. Saw this one twice in the theater. About a week apart. Saw it opening day when I was in college. And then my parents saw it on Easter Sunday. Not Easter, but the following Sunday. And then we took my grandmother to go see it. And thought it would be important for her to see it. But yeah, The Passion of the Christ. Then we got The Pacifier with Vin Diesel. Yeah, lazy afternoon when I was in college, and I decided to go to the theater and see The Pacifier. My dad had taken my brother and some of my cousins to go see it, and they had a really good time. And of course, I saw it and thought it was very good movie. Haven't watched it in a while, but yeah, but I may have to put that one in sometime or later. Pacific Rim, the first one. Guillermo del Toro. Overcomer. One of the Kendrick brothers movies. Yeah. Operation Dumbo Drop. Saw that one back in the day. One Night with the King. This is a film that was produced by company's called Generation Entertainment, but it's to put it basic, it's the Christian network TBN. They decided to do a telling of the story of Esther, and yeah, and they try to make a biblical epic. It's okay. It's not great. Kind of. I thought, personally, I thought it was kind of overhyped, but yeah. Next one is Oliver and Company. Now, this movie did manage to get played twice. There was the original release, and then there was a 1995 theatrical re-release. I remember seeing this Thanksgiving weekend 1988 when it originally played. I had an aunt that took me to go see it in South Bend, Indiana. Okay, do I have any more on that side? Nope. So we're going to go to another pile. We got Clint Eastwood in The Mule. Very, very good movie. Yeah. Tom Cruise in Minority Report. This was from 2002. I only only saw Men in Black 2 in the theater. I've seen the other Men in Black movies, but I was only able to see Men in Black 2. And to be honest, this was also the one this is like the Santa Claus, it's the one where I kind of lost faith in the series. Yeah, because the first movie was kind of an action-adventure movie. This one was more of a comedy. And it just doesn't work that way. The Maze Runner, only saw this one. I didn't get a chance to see the other two. But yeah, here's the Maze Runner. This was kind of at when Hollywood was making movies that were similar to the Hunger Games. Like the Hunger Games came out, then what's the other series? Is it Divergent? Yeah, Divergent. That came out. Then there was the Maze Runner, and there was like a whole series of movies that were coming out right and left that were kind of Hunger Games themed. And there's The Martian with Matt Damon, directed by Ridley Scott. Man of Steel. The Magnificent Seven with Denzel Washington and Chris Pratt, directed by Anton Fuqua. Trying to see who else was in this. Peter Sarsgaard, Vincent D'Onofrio. Now this movie I saw when I was 5. The rating of this film is PG-13. My parents took me to see it. Why? Because they wanted to desperately see this movie. Even though this is not the movie that you take little children to. Look Who's Talking. Even though it does have a baby in the movie, it's not exactly kid-friendly. There's some really adult jokes in that movie that little kids do not need to be seeing. And I was 5. The opening shot. That's what I'm going to say. The Lion King. Saw that one when it originally played. Saw it in, again, my aunt took me to see this one near Columbus, Ohio at an AMC where we went to see The Lion King back in 1994, back in the day. Jim Carrey, Lemony Snicket in a series of unfortunate events. Yeah. I think this movie came out around Christmas time when it originally played in 2004. Yeah, I think it was around Christmas time, and went to the theater to see it. Of the Jurassic Park movies, only got to see Jurassic World. I know. Jingle All the Way with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Saw that one on Christmas Eve, supposedly the day it was supposed to take place. Jarhead. Saw this one in college. This movie was like, I think it was one of the first R-rated movie I saw by myself. But yeah, I haven't watched this one in quite some time either. I'm gonna have to watch this one. It Chapter 2. Saw this one with a bunch of friends from work, and yeah. All three of the Iron Man movies, Iron Man 1, Iron Man 2, Iron Man 3. I saw all those in the theater. And of course, this was the poster. This was used as the poster. And if you notice, Robert Downey Jr. is really not the star. He is starring in it, but what do you see here? You see mostly the costume as the star of the film. So yeah. We got Interstellar, Christopher Nolan flick. And this is the one that came with the IMAX film cell in it. Unfortunately, it's not. It's the image of a film of the. It's an image of something that they did not film in IMAX, so it's got bars on the top and the bottom. We got Ang Lee's The Hulk with Eric Bana, Jennifer Connelly, Sam Elliott, Josh Lucas, and Nick Nolte. I didn't exactly hate this movie when it came out. I still don't have hatred toward it. I do have problems with the graphics or how the editing style. I was not a fan of the comic book type of editing, like the scenes within the scene and it transitioning. I was not a fan of that. It kind of drove me crazy. Next up is Inception, directed by Christopher Nolan. Get that glare off there. And of course with the lenticular cover. I don't know if it's changing. I can't tell. But you should see like the sky. Yeah, the sky should be changing. Anyway. The only Indiana Jones movie I ever saw in the theater was Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, unfortunately. Because I was too young to see the original movies. Raiders of the Lost Ark came out before I was born, as well as Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. That I was just being born, and of course Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade I was too young to see, and because it was PG-13, and you know, my parents, other than Look Who's Talking, but you know. Okay, the next one is I'm Not Ashamed, the true story of Rachel Joy Scott at Columbine High School. Saw this one in the theater, and actually saw it with the church. Our church. We went up to the theater in Fort Wayne to see it because it was a selective city movie. Because a lot of theaters weren't showing it just because of the subject matter. And the real mother to Rachel came to our church and spoke, and she reflected on that day and what Rachel was like, and this movie's a hard watch, to be honest. Um, even in the theater, it was a hard watch because I'm watching the film and I'm wondering what she would be like today if she had lived. And I'm wondering, I wish I had somebody like that in my life back at that time. Yeah, the movie's a hard movie to watch. It's, of course, me being a kid that grew up and was going to school when that happened, and immediately the school changed their security policies overnight. It was like that. It was a tough time. It was a tough time going to school. Now it's gotten even worse. There's been more shooting. There's been even worse shooting since Columbine, Sandy Hook, just to name one. But yeah, let's move on. Next up is I Can Only Imagine. From Lionsgate. Starring Dennis Quaid, Trace Adkins, J. Michael Finley. The true story of Bart Millard and the story behind the song I Can Only Imagine. They later did one on Jeremy Camp, I Still Believe. Was not able to go see that one in the theater because COVID hit right at the opportunity to go see the film, and once that hit, movie theaters were shut down, and the only way I could see it was to get the Blu-ray, which came out pretty quickly. Now the next four, we have the Hunger Games movies. There's the Hunger Games, which came in this huge box set. So I pulled this out and have it sit on my shelf. Here's Catching Fire. And then here's Mockingjay Part 1. This was the Walmart exclusive version, which was really cheap. And then Mockingjay Part 2. So yeah. Next up is Hunchback of Notre Dame. Saw that one when it originally played. Homeward Bound: The Incredible Journey. As a matter of fact, we went to see this film, and the film broke just before the movie started, and they were able to repair it and get it back up and running. But yeah. The Hobbit movies: Unexpected Journey, Desolation of Smaug, and The Battle of the Five Armies. Saw this one when I was in college. Hidalgo with Viggo Mortensen and Omar Sharif in there as well. The only Guardians of the Galaxy I saw was the first one. Ron Howard's The Grinch, despite what it says on the cover. This was originally titled The Grinch when it played in the theater, but by the time it came out on video and DVD, they changed the title to Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. There was some legal issue that Universal had at the time. They called it The Grinch, but they weren't allowed it was something strange. We got Gravity with Sandra Bullock, directed by Alfonso Cuarón. Also, we got George Clooney in here. This is a movie that really works when you see it in 3D. When you see it on just your high-def TV in 2D, it kind of loses its effect. Yeah, it was a movie that you really needed to see in 3D in order to get the full experience. Me and my cousins went to go see this one. It's not that great of a movie. It's a horror flick, but it's not the greatest movie. There is a little bit of mystery and suspense to it. It's Gothica with Halle Berry and Robert Downey Jr. and Penelope Cruz. Yeah, she's a psychiatrist at this women's facility, and all of a sudden she wakes up finding herself inside the institution where she works at, and supposedly she had killed her husband. But then she starts digging deeper why she's in the institution. She finds out that she did do it, but also that what her husband was doing was wrong as well. Basically torturing and abusing women that were torturing these poor women, and eventually one of them got killed, and so the ghost took possession of Halle Berry's character, and so went and killed the husband. But that's not all of it. There's more and deeper stuff going on. Joe Pesci and Danny Glover. This was a return for them post Lethal Weapon, and it's Gone Fishing. Yeah, I remember we went and saw this one in the theater, and had no idea that it was written by J.J. Abrams, because there was a period of time when J.J. Abrams was writing all these movies for Disney. Gone Fishing was one of them. There was another film called Taking Care of Business. He did some rewrites on Armageddon. Yeah, he was under contract to Disney to do all this stuff, and this was one of his movies that he wrote. He didn't direct it. Christopher Kane directed this film, but he wrote it. Even has Willie Nelson in it. So the first Godzilla movie from, when did this come out? 2014. Directed by Gareth Edwards. Yeah, then they just released Godzilla vs. King Kong, so yeah, so they're continuing on with this franchise. And then there's the God's Not Dead films. God's Not Dead 1, God's Not Dead 3, A Light in Darkness. Yeah, saw both of these in the theater. Didn't see God's Not Dead 2. I just didn't have time for whatever reason. And again, out of all the Ghostbusters movies, Ghostbusters, the female version, it's not as bad as what people made it out to be. But But yeah, why? This did not need to be made. I'm sorry. It didn't need to be made. If they were going to make something, they should have done something with the original cast. But then we got G.I. Joe Retaliation. Supposedly they're making another sequel. But yeah. And this is the one with Bruce Willis in it. And we got Tim Allen and Kirstie Alley for Richer or Poor. Now this was a movie that came out just as Home Improvement was coming to an end, and Tim Allen was starting to do other projects outside of Disney, and this was the first one he did outside that. This one was released by Universal, so yeah, and it's a funny story. It's a funny movie. This was actually the first. No, it wasn't the first, but it was one of the first PG-13 movies I ever saw in the theater. I think Look Who's Talking would handle that one, but this one was the follow-up. The Flintstones with John Goodman, Rick Moranis, and Elizabeth Perkins and Rosie O'Donnell, produced by Steven Spielberg, directed by Brian Levant. But yeah, saw that one in the theater. We liked it at the time. A lot of people didn't. It was a flop, but a lot of us kids liked it, and we felt it got the tone right. Fireproof, another one of the Kendrick Brothers movies. Kirk Cameron and Aaron Bethea. And the Roland Emmerich version of Godzilla. Saw that one. Saw that one in a theater. Our school took us to go see this movie, and we had to get permission from our parents to go see it because it was PG-13 and possibly foul language and stuff like that. But next up we got E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Saw it in 2002 for the theatrical re-release for the 20th anniversary edition, so that counts. Dunkirk, Christopher Nolan movie about was it World War I, World War II? Anyway, but yeah, this one's a good film too. It's one of the shortest Christopher Nolan movies, and this is the one where he shot a bulk of it in IMAX, and it was like crazy. The amount of detail he got into this movie. The Eddie Murphy version of Dr. Dolittle. Saw that one in the theater with a bunch of classmates. Our choir went to the theater to go see this. And yeah. We got Doctor Strange. The Day After Tomorrow. That's another one I haven't watched in quite some time. The Dark Knight Rises. The Dark Knight. Daddy Daycare, Creed, Cowboys and Aliens. Make sure it wasn't Versus. Yeah, not a lot of people cared for this movie. Harrison Ford, Daniel Craig, directed by Jon Favreau, produced by Ron Howard and Steven Spielberg. And we got Courageous, Coach Carter. Interesting thing about this movie, I saw this in college, and we saw it just a couple days before our school, our college, was to have the real Coach Carter come and speak. And so we got to go see the film, and the following, like Thursday or something like that, Coach Carter came and he spoke. And matter of fact, there's his autograph right there. I just put it in with the DVD. The interesting thing was, I was the first one to actually ask about the movie itself. And to tell you the story, he's asking all we're in this auditorium, okay, and he says, and there's no microphones, and he said, "Sir, what's your question?" He points. I have my hand up. I raised my hand and asked him this question. I said, "What was your reaction when the studio called you and said, we're going to tell your story and put it up on the big screen?" And he heard me loud and clear, and so, and just for out of courtesy, he turns back to the audience and repeats my question. He repeats my question, and he says, and then he turns right back to me and looks me right in the eyes, and he says, "To tell you the truth, mister," just like, "to tell you the truth, sir," just like in the film, he said, "I hung up on him." And I'm kind of giving him this puzzled look, like, why would you hang up on a major studio? And he said, "I see that looking." He goes, "I see you're looking at me kind of funny." He said, "Why would you hang up?" And he said, "The reason being is because when they called me in order to do this as a film, they called when all the real events were still going on." And he said, "I was getting a lot of prank phone calls." And he said, "I hung up on him." And then a few years later, I get another phone call. But by this time, I had changed my phone and got caller ID and so on and so forth. And he said, and then again, he didn't look at the display on his phone with the caller ID, and he's kind of nonchalantly kind of blowing him off. He said, yeah, whatever. And just as he's about to hang up, he sees on the display Paramount Pictures Corporation. And then he immediately says, "Yeah, I guess we can talk a movie deal." So, yeah, that's that story. Next up, we got the Chronicles of Narnia films, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Prince Caspian, and The Voyage of the Dawn Treader. Yes, I managed to see all of those in the theater. Disney's A Christmas Carol. Hold on a second, I just messed something up. Yeah, I messed my pile up. Yeah, Disney's Christmas Carol. Cellular with Kim Basinger, Chris Evans, Jason Statham. I'm sorry, not David Strathairn. Jason Statham and William H. Macy. This was Chris Evans, like when he was brand new. Yeah, in this thriller about cell phones, and it even has Jessica Biel in here playing his girlfriend. So, Catch Me If You Can, Leonardo DiCaprio, Tom Hanks, directed by Steven Spielberg, based on a true story about Frank William Abagnale, who is one of the greatest con artists in the country, or in the world, I don't know. But yeah, he's the reason why now all of our checks that we write are now watermarked. And then we have The Case for Christ, a Pure Flix Entertainment movie based on the true story of Lee Strobel. We got Captain America Civil War, Captain America the Winter Soldier, A Bug's Life. This movie I punished my brother so bad for making me sit through. Yes. But my thinking has changed, and his thinking has changed. He loved it when we originally saw it. I hated it when I originally saw it. Now I like it, and then he hates it. Evan Almighty. That's kind of in a random spot. But yeah, Evan Almighty. Bridge of Spies. Black Hawk Down. This was the first R-rated movie I ever saw in the theater. Directed by Ridley Scott, Josh Hartnett, Ewan McGregor, Tom Sizemore, Eric Bana, William Fichtner, and Sam Shepard. Yeah, there you go. Bicentennial Man with Robin Williams. Directed by Chris Columbus, who did Mrs. Doubtfire. The BFG, Steven Spielberg flick. First one for Disney. Ben-Hur. Saw that one at a Fathom event screening. Again, before home video and television, you needed to see it in the theater. Beethoven. Beauty and the Beast, the animated version, of course. Batman v Superman. Bambi. This was the first movie I ever saw in a movie theater. It was a 1988 theatrical re-release. The Babe. Saw that one at the drive-in. This was the first movie I ever saw in a drive-in. But yeah, John Goodman and The Babe. Of the Avengers films, the ones I saw was Endgame, Age of Ultron, and Marvel's The Avengers. And this was also the last movie I ever saw on 35mm film. After that, it's been nothing but digital and 3D. Disney's Angels in the Outfield. Anchorman, The Legend of Ron Burgundy. Now I'm holding up this version because the version I saw was the PG-13 cut, not the unrated cut. American Sniper. Aladdin. And AI. So, those are the movies that I own that I saw in the movie theater. Quite a bit. Now I gotta put all these movies away. So, from me to you, see you later.